Let's talk about a budget Yasuo build for Riftbound. So we are playing Yasuo Unforgiven. For 2 energy and exhausting him, you can move a friendly unit to or from your base. It's really important to know that this is not reaction speed. A lot of people keep asking me that when I'm playing this in tournaments. It is only to be done on your turn when no other actions are happening. It's still a crazy strong ability though. It's very similar to accelerating a unit, except you're not losing the power. It's costing 1 more energy, but it's just able to be done to any unit. And also moving them back from base means that you can protect a lot of your units as well. So very interesting champion ability. Then we also have our champion unit, Yasuo Remorseful. This is a 6 cost for 2 power, so very expensive power cost, but it's a 6 might. When I attack, deal damage equal to my might to an enemy unit here. This is a crazy strong ability. Honestly, one of the strongest champion abilities that we've seen, but it can be interacted with, and there's obviously some downsides. One quick thing that I do want to mention, just a very quick little tip and trick, is that when I attack abilities go on the chain and resolve after when I defend abilities. It might kind of seem backwards. It might seem like attack should go first, but so if you are attacking into a Master Yi player who has a unit at a battlefield, the +2 might will trigger before your 6 damage happens. So that's a very important thing to remember and know that ruling. Then let's talk about battlefields. We have Obelisk of Power. This is usually when you're going 2nd or 3rd, just to help choose how many runes you want to start with, basically. And we don't really have that strong of an early game, so we're wanting to get to that mid / kind of the late game earlier. This is a mid-range build. So then we have Candlelight Sanctum. We are running Nocturne, which I'll explain later, but basically when you look at him from the top of the deck, you get to play him. And so this battlefield lets you look at the top of your deck. Pretty self-explanatory. Great Nocturne Turbo synergy there. Then we have Zon Warrens. When you conquer here, discard 1, then draw 1. You'll see some of our effects in our deck say this wording. So obviously this is an effect that we want, very strong for our deck, and it goes really well with Rasa, which is another card that we'll talk about later. For our rune count, we are on 6 Chaos and 6 Calm. This is actually one of the decks that I have felt has the most awkward rune problem usually. There's a lot of green that you want to put back. There's a lot of purple that you want to put back. So you have to be really careful with what you're putting back and how you're tapping your runes to pay for energy cost. Be really mindful of that. It's one of the most tricky rune decks that I've used in Riftbound so far. Then for our main deck, we have 3 Traveling Merchant. This is our best 2-cost unit. This is what you want to see in your opening hand. It's got 2 might. It'll allow you to get some points early, defend a little bit as well. And when you move, discard 1, then draw 1. We saw that ability on Zon Warrens, and here it is in our main deck as well. You know, you have multiple ways to actually move this unit. You can even do it with Yasuo. I've definitely moved this up, conquered something, gotten, you know, my move trigger before I conquer, and then use my Yasuo legend to just move it back. And I'll get the move ability again, letting me sculpt my hand and also protecting it, which is really strong. So this card is really fantastic in the list. Then another 2-drop unit we have 3 of is Clockwork Keeper. This being able to pay a power and draw 1 and basically replacing itself, just getting a free unit on board, is really strong because we don't have too many like really expensive units in this game or cards in general, and so once you get to that mid game, it's pretty okay actually to put back runes, and you'll notice that you do that actually a lot with this deck. And so this is like a really strong way to keep your card count really high. Then we have 2 Stalwart Poro. So like I said, you know, 8 is pretty high. I think like 8 is your average. I had 3 Stalwart Poro in here for a little bit. I had 0. I think 8's a pretty good number to make sure that you usually have a turn 1 play. It's really nice because you have stacked deck, so even if you go 2nd, you have three runes. You can tap 1 for stacked deck and probably find a 2-cost might or 2-cost unit to play. So it's pretty consistent to start with one of them, and gives you a lot of ways to not immediately lose the game to decks that are more aggressive to you. All right, then we have 3 Defy. This card is honestly literally one of the top 3 cards in Riftbound so far. And really glad that we can play this in this deck. MVP card, you'll be happy pretty much every time you see that in your hand. And then honestly, one of the reasons to play Yasuo is because he can play stack deck as well. So being able to play stack deck and Defy in the same deck feels amazing. Stack deck gives you so much consistency. This is just a good card all around. It also pairs really well with both Nocturne and Rasa, which are key units in our deck. So stack deck is doing everything that you want in this deck. It is the best card to see in your hand anytime, basically. We are on 1 on guard. You draw a lot of cards in this deck, so we're actually on a lot of one-ofs because you filter with stack deck, you just draw and discard and do all this other kind of stuff. You can really actually afford to run these kind of like tech pieces and not have consistency issues that normally happens with other decks. We are on 3 discipline. You usually have the rune, you usually have the energy to pay for this, and so being able to draw and replace it, we really care about our hand size in this deck, so this is a really great battle trick that green gets and also keeps your influence up. We're on 3 Find Your Center. Like I mentioned earlier, we want to be getting to that mid game pretty fast, and being able to ramp and also keep our influence up does, again, pretty much everything that we want. It's going to count as a card in the trash for Rasa, but you're not losing your tempo, you're not losing, well, you're losing your tempo, but you're ramping for future tempo, you're not losing your hand size. This is also just an amazing card in the deck list. Speaking of amazing cards in the deck list, man, there are just so many good cards in this deck. Fight or Flight. This card is absolutely unreal for tempo. So not only does your legend allow you to be flexible with your battlefield positionings, whether that's moving up an exhausted unit that you just played this turn, kind of giving that fake accelerate movement, or having a unit out of battlefield and moving it back with your legend and protecting your units and stuff. Fight or Flight is going to be an amazing tempo play that you're usually using on your opponent's units. When they play a Dead Wound Predator from hand trying to blow up your Yasuo or something, you can say, nope, I'm going to Fight or Flight it. It goes back to base. It's not going to be able to fight. I kind of just skipped over your whole turn in a way. Really, really strong stuff. Obviously, if you're using on something like Dead Bloom, you have to pay that deflect cost. Be mindful of that. But this will just allow you to win games straight up. The tempo that you get from it is going to be unreal, and then you have Defy as a backup if they try to do a trick of their own. So really, really strong stuff there. We have 1 Ride the Wind. I actually low-key think that this might be also one of the top 3 cards in this game. But in this deck, it doesn't exactly do everything that I've seen it do in other decks. So we're only on 1 copy. This card is unreal. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because, frankly, we'll probably do an entire video on just this card. It's one of the best and also most complicated cards in the game. So watch out for a Ride the Winds video coming to you either on YouTube or maybe on our Patreon. I'm not sure yet. All the links will be down below for that kind of stuff. Then we have 1 Last Breath. This is Yasuo's signature spell, and it's crazy strong. So 3 energy and 2 power, which might seem bad, but the really nice thing is that this can't be defied. Similar to how Falling Star is actually really good in Kai'Sa because, green decks can't even defy it, and they only have to put back 1 power because they use their legend to pay for it. We do have to put back the 2 powers, but if you're putting back 2 runes for this and pulling this off, it usually means that you're winning the game with it. This is an action, so you can do this on your opponent's turn during showdowns. You ready a friendly unit, and it deals damage equal to its might to an enemy unit at a battlefield. So it's really strong to get your Yasuo champion unit out, and especially if you can do this all in the same turn. Get your Yasuo champion out, use Last Breath, ready it. Now, even though it came into play exhausted, now it's ready. Deal 6 damage to a unit somewhere, move that Yasuo up, use its effect again, use its effect for the first time, but you're going to deal another 6 damage to another unit, and then go to combat on top of that. You can do just some absolutely insane plays with Last Breath, but, it is a little bit bricky, so we're only running 1 because we have so much filter and card draw. You really only need usually that 1 most of the time. Then we have a card that a lot of people, when I played it, had to grab it and read it from me. Reinforce. This is a 5-cost spell, so this cannot be defied. Look at the top 5 cards of your main deck. You may play a unit from among them. Its energy cost is reduced by 5 energy. Then recycle the remaining cards. So as long as you are hitting a 5-cost unit, like Blitzcrank, for example, you actually won't have to pay for the Blitzcrank because you basically paid its energy cost by doing this. You would still have to pay this green rune power, You know, all power costs still need to be played, but it's a way for you to get a card into the graveyard, which we'll explain in a little bit. I know I keep saying that, but that is an important strategy of this deck, and also to give you more filtering, right? Like we talk about how versatile and like consistent this deck is. Being able to play this and seeing multiple options for units that you might want to play extends your hand into more options and ranges. I will say though, it is a little inconsistent because of the kind of low count of units that we are on. So be mindful with this. It is possible to whiff. It has happened to me before, but it's also got some huge, huge upsides as well, which is why we're playing it. So let's talk about Blitzcrank since I already have the boy out here. Blitzcrank is one of the most toxic cards in this game. It is absolutely unreal. Being able to hold a battlefield, which is why it's so important that we have all these 2-cost units and stuff to start the game with units. Holding a battlefield, owning a battlefield, and then playing Blitzcrank to that battlefield with your other unit, not only is going to defend that unit that's there, because a lot of our units are small, like Traveling Merchant and all that kind of stuff, but his ability is going to move. You may move an enemy unit here. You don't have to if you don't want to, but most of the time you're going to, and you can even take stuff from their base. So being able to move a Traveling Merchant up to a battlefield, playing a Blitzcrank on there, and then taking their Pouty Poro, well, that's got deflect. Let's say they're a Ravenbloom student or something. Take their Ravenbloom student, bring it up to the battlefield, and now you're forcing them to fight. And another really good thing about Blitz is that he has tank. So even though your Traveling Merchant there only has 2 might, if your Blitzcrank is there with it, that Ravenbloom student has to deal damage to that Blitzcrank first. So most of the time your Blitzcrank won't die. You'll usually kill one of your enemy units and you're protecting your own guy all at the same time. This guy is really, really good in this deck, and I have been really enjoying them. I had him as an experimental 1 of at first, and I quickly made it a 2 of because of how powerful it was. Another really good, and this is why I said he's so toxic, is when he holds, you have to return him to your hand. Now that might seem bad at first because you're like losing that unit that you played, right? You're losing that tempo. But it's actually really good because you'll get the hold point, even if it's the only unit at the battlefield. You score and then return him. And then if you do still have units there, because like I said, he protected your other little guys, it's definitely possible that you still have units at that battlefield. You just play him again. And so if your opponent has a unit in base, you play it, Blitzcrank up that unit, kill it off, pass your opponent. Your opponent might just play another unit in base and pass. Well, your Blitzcrank goes back to hand, you play it on your battlefield again, you bring up the unit from base, and you don't really allow your opponent to set up. So Blitzcrank is really, really good. It can pull from the other battlefield. If you're having issues fighting both battlefields at once, you can hold down on one battlefield, make that, reinforce it with Blitzcrank while taking away from your opponent's battlefield that they control. So this card is really, really, really good in this deck. Then we have 2 Mind Splitters. So this is nice. You can use this with the Reinforce card. You'd have to pay 2 on top of the Reinforce and then also 2 power as well. But it's really, really strong to get rid of your opponent's like really good late game cards. We're a mid-range deck, so being able to drop this down and saying, hey, the late game that you were building to, saving up for your Time Warp or your Deadbloom Predator or something, I'm just gonna take that out of your hand. Really, really strong ability there. So Mind Splitter works very well in this deck. Then let's talk about the actual bread and butter though. We have 3 Nocturne and 3 Rasa. So I'm gonna kind of just talk about them at the same time. Our whole deck is honestly built around these 6 cards. So the deck does have some consistency issues. Obviously I talked about earlier, it's really consistent because you have so much filter and card draw. The only downside is that you are playing a lot of these units, which are not good in the early game if you draw them and can kind of break up your hand. So sometimes that does happen, but overall the deck's usually pretty consistent. So Nocturne has a really special ability that it does have a errata, by the way. So make sure that you look up that. When you look at cards from the top of your deck and don't draw them and see me, you may play me for a power of any color. Really, really, really strong and just an insane card. So when you do Stacked Deck, when you do Candlelight Sanctum, when you do Reinforce, and you look at 5 cards, if you see Nocturne in any of those cards, you can choose to banish it, that's the errata, and you basically put it on the chain to be played. You finish resolving your card first. So if you're doing Stack Deck, you play Stack Deck, you look at 3, you take Nocturne as one of those 3 cards and you put it in your banish and you say this is gonna go on the chain. Then out of those 2 cards remaining, you will put one into your hand and recycle the other one, and then you resolve Nocturne by playing him if you want. So really, really powerful. You can literally get him out as early as turn 1 technically. Usually you're not doing it until like turn 2 or later, but really, really strong stuff. And he has ganking, which is really good because if you get him out early and put him in your base rested or exhausted or something, and you move to your next turn, well, he's going to be awake, and you can tap your Yasuo leader for 2, move him up to a battlefield, fight there, and that will not exhaust him. Anytime a unit moves from a card effect, as far as I know with the current printed cards, none of them say to exhaust it when you move up. Yeah, I don't think so. You can gank with him because he'll still be ready. He'll still be ready to move. So you can actually like really dominate a battlefield and the game in the early game if you just drop an early Nocturne. So there's a huge high roll potential there. So that's why Nocturne can be so good. You have so many ways to trigger him, so many ways to put him on the battlefield, and he just can take over a game because of how early you can get him out sometimes. So then we have Rasa, which I know I said we don't have a lot of high energy cost stuff in this deck, but don't let the 10 cost fool you. He costs 1 less for each card in your trash. This is a insanely strong effect in a deck like this where how many cards did I mention, we play this and then it draws us a card, or we play this and it ramps us, or whatever, right? So your Finder Centers, your stacked decks, your Traveling Merchants, every single time you move Traveling Merchants, you're putting one in your graveyard, but you're drawing that back to hand so that you're not losing your tempo and your advantage and stuff. So you can very quickly fill up a trash in this game. I know I say graveyard sometimes, sorry. You can very quickly fill up your trash in this game and actually play this card for 0 energy. All you do is pay a purple, which is unreal. Pay a chaos power, which is just unreal. So being able to, by turn 4 or 5, sometimes even, I will find myself literally playing 2 of these for free into your base, which that's a really hard thing for your opponent to deal with, right? Yes, it can be falling starred and all that stuff, but the tempo that you're getting is still really fantastic. So Finder Center, Stacked Deck, all these cards are just filtering through, Merchant, like I said, Zon Warrens, everything's getting you to the point where you're gonna draw these because you're filtering and drawing so much through your deck. And when you do draw these, now your trash is really big and you're just playing them almost for free or free sometimes. So really strong unit here. And one other quick thing I wanna mention is with Reinforce, something that I had to rule check multiple times to make sure I was actually correct is that if you play Reinforce, the card that you are choosing to play, similar to Nocturne, will go into the banishment and go onto the chain, which similar to Nocturne with Stacked or Nocturne with Reinforce, that actually can be responded to because it is on the chain. So normally you can't respond to a unit being played, but you actually can in this instance because it is using the chain. But the reason I bring it up is because you put Rasa on the chain if you want to use it with Reinforce, and then you finish resolving Reinforce fully before you go to play this card. So Reinforce will actually go to your trash and count as one of the cards towards Rasa's cost reducement. So if you're doing this for 5 energy, it's very possible that you can play a Rasa for free usually, or very cheap, because the Reinforce is reducing it by 5, and then it's getting reduced for each card in your trash, which will always be at least 1 because Reinforce will be in your trash. So it's pretty easy to play a Rasa for free off of the Reinforce. There's just so many synergies with this deck. I think it's a really strong deck. We were really trying to get a budget deck out here for y'all because we know how expensive this game is right now. This deck is very cheap compared to a lot of other decks. And while it is probably more of a tier 2 deck, I have been playing this a lot and actually been getting a ton of wins even in tournaments with this deck, even beating things like Kai'Sa and Yi. I'm not saying it's the best deck in format. I'm not saying you're gonna have a great matchup against everything out there, but it is a really strong deck. I truly believe it. It was one of the things that I started testing very heavy for Houston, but it is, a little inconsistent. It does struggle a bit with some of the top tier decks out there, so we didn't quite make the mark for bringing it to try to top 8 Houston, but I truly believe that this is one of the best, if not the best budget deck build out there. I think it's a really strong build. It actually does take quite a lot of skill and knowing your deck and stuff, so make sure that you're practicing with this deck a lot. I tried to cover a lot of the rules and tips and tricks that I've ran into so far. So hopefully that helps all of y'all out. Also, don't leave quite yet. We have one last quick announcement. We have a Riftbound Origins booster box giveaway. Y'all, these are going for like $300 on the market right now, and we are giving one away completely for free to celebrate doing new content for Riftbound. So make sure to enter that giveaway. It ends in less than a week, and the description will have the link to enter. Absolutely free to win, no restrictions at all, shipping anywhere in the world on our dime, y'all. It is a chance to get one of the most coveted TCG products in the world right now, absolutely free. So we wanted to give that to y'all, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.